everyone. How are you? How are you enjoying the summer? The British summer, or wherever you are, the Italian summer, or the Maltese summer. Welcome to episode number 13 of the series of Ozzy Game Dev, his racing car game. With me, as you can see, we have Ozzy. Let me unmute
Hello,
him. Yeah, hello
hello,
Ozzy.
hello,
Thank you for being
hello.
here. And we continue with our game dev. We go to the usual uh, uh, ritual. We go to the our browser and we do the usual things. So please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Um, as always, remember that under each video there might be links related to where is it? I'm lost. Not here, not here, sorry. Here. Under each video there might be links related to the video itself. So the links will take you to Mega, where you can download the sources. Those that are public only will be available. Those that are not, you will need to go to Patreon or Coffee basically to get them. Like anyone else, I have a Facebook page, which is currently my blog, but I did start working on this one, on a web page for my things, because Facebook, it's difficult to find things on it. It doesn't let you see what I did 3 years ago. Basically, it's something that is annoying me. So yeah, this is I hope to manage to replace it by the end of this year. That's the aim. Then there is the Phase 101 Facebook group, which please join, or join the Commodore Dev Facebook group, which this one is growing and growing and growing. I think it's one of the best achievements that I have on Facebook. I have other groups, but I only mentioned these 2 or 3 with the page, but there are other groups related to Phase 101, but this one is my, let's say, my favorite. If you want to get in touch with me, you can write to me on Facebook, but I do take time to reply. So best option is Discord. And if you don't like neither Discord nor Facebook, then you can join Telegram. And it is growing also. Since I was on holiday, it grew by 4 people. So in 5 weeks, 4 new members in it. So not bad. While before there was nobody. Basically. As I was saying, all the stuff is either on Patreon. If you want to support us, is either on Patreon or on Coffee. They are identical. The advantage of Patreon and Coffee is that you get to see videos and code before they are released on YouTube. And of course, you get access to some other things which they are mentioned on the websites. Besides that, from where this game started, the racing car game of Ozzy, we have the game jam, which only has 2 more days. So basically, on Sunday, it ends. It is our RetroTank Game Jam. We do have some submissions to it. I am coding something related to it. I doubt I will finish, I have to be honest, but I will show what I have done. The reason why is, for me, I have achieved something that it's been a long time on my mind, and that is having an I'm going to use inverted commas, okay? The word is really, don't take the word literally. An infinite number of bobs on the screen, and same for sprites. But of course, this is limited by the hardware. So it's, in theory, you cannot have infinite number of bobs and sprites, basically. It's just that the routine can handle that. And before this stream and before I started talking to Ozzy, I got another idea of how not to make it better, but it depends on the mode that I'm using the bobs. But that's maybe I will include it in my library or not, but yeah, it's one of those things. So I'm using the 10 game to, let's say, practice with these. All the games end up on the retro programmers inside itch.io page, and only those that are submitted and we get permission to publish, we publish on the website. So not all games will be there. It depends whether people want them to be there or not. So yeah, we need to switch back, and this time I give my, because I spoke a lot already. So I need Ozzy to talk a lot now.
Really? Do you have to talk?
Yeah. So it's Ozzy's turn. Thank you once again for being here, and this is episode number 13 of this game series, and today he's going to talk about sound and branching related to the game, of course, always. Ozzy, all yours.
Okay. So hello everybody. My name is Ozzy, and I did nothing in the last month, to be honest. Nothing. Let's say I did something, but just little steps, because here in central Italy is too hot. I don't have the mood and the force to sit at the desk with my Amiga. I want to go out, so not major updates. The game is still the same as you saw last month. So same mechanics, same tracks, same everything. But still, I tried to do some little experiments with a topic which is not easy to understand, at least for me. And this is about sound. And for me, it's not easy because I don't have the basics of what is a sound, how does it work, and how the Amiga handles the sounds. Additionally, the RAM Jam book, yes, there is a whole chapter about the sound, so the audio. But for me, it was not satisfying.
Outdated. Yeah, it's outdated also.
Okay, they are mentioning something. It's a weird chapter. It starts with a lot of theory.
Yes.
And then it goes straight into explaining how to use this P71 format and just explains how to use the routines, some pre-made routines made by someone else.
Yeah, it's the P61, not the P71. Just because you said 71.
Oh, sorry. Yes. It's 61.
Yeah,
61.
And while we are at it, let's make Hound Dog happy by giving him points. So you get all the points, Hound Dog. He always reminds me for that. So yeah, Ozzy, please continue.
Yeah, so as I was saying, at least from my point of view, the audio chapter, the audio fundamentals chapter on Ramjan book could be improved. It could be have been
Yes.
done
I
better.
agree with you. It's the worst chapter, I think, from the whole book.
But still, they say something, of course.
Yeah.
It's not easy to understand the theory the beginning to me, and the on the other side, the end of the chapter is quite trivial because it's just explaining which function to call and
Yeah.
how to use P61.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks to the mighty power of the internet, we have other resources today, and I started just fetching data from the internet and trying to understand this mysterious Paula chip. How does it work? Because I must confess, in my previous productions, when it comes to sound, I just do the replayer routine, do the heavy lifting, do all the work. I just blindly code the routine, and that's it. And I just wait for someone that writes me a mod file, which is the format that we usually use for music on the Amiga, at least for classic Amiga, and that's it. So it's quite it's interesting, of course, but it's not real hardware programming. I wanted to do something more. So what I did, since my game is, to be honest, is muted, almost muted. There is only some it's a little sound of that simulates the engine, the noise of the engine of the cars. I wanted to do something more, and still I don't get a lot of results, good results. But at least I started this process of learning while doing things. So, what I learned in the last month is essentially what I'm going to say today, and that's it. So I don't know. Do you want to show the game once more, or?
Yeah. We should show the game not once more because there were some changes, no? And you should say what these changes are. So
Yes, just okay. Go to the second page. There is a change log, and then we can start the game.
okay.
So everybody will notice what is changed.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the change log. As I said, not too much, not too much at all. The first obvious thing is the HUD has been reworked, and I just replaced the timers for each car with indicators. And this is on the first instance because the original game used indicators, and the timers for me were really some debug information and not more. They are not so useful for the player. Mm-hmm. So I started to divide this lower part. It's a 16 pixel height part of the screen, the bottom of the screen. I divide it into equal parts. So I just draw a little rectangle for each car, and then next to each car there is a small circle, which is the indicator that just shows the status of the car. And then there is a lap indicator that just shows the progress of the race. So how many laps are left in order to complete the race. Additionally, I added this concept of the best lap. So the car that makes the best time, so the fastest lap, is awarded with some extra points, and this is configurable with a define. It's a macro inside the code, but it could be configurable by the user in the option screen, maybe in the future. And then there is this other concept of the best leader, which is the car which was on the first day, on the first place for the laps, for the most laps. And again, we have the car that is the best leader is awarded with extra points. Then the Amiga guide has been updated with more info. Above all, there are a lot of information about how to build track files. And then the most important thing, at least for me, because when I was a child, even if I'm Italian, I should cheer for Ferrari. But I remember this yellow car. It's the Renault. And I liked the external appearance, the yellowing, the chassis of the car. So I liked a lot this machine, this car, and this is why I was eager to have the Perrault, which is the RC counterpart of Renault. I wanted to have this yellow color, and so this is, and it was not trivial because, once again, the sprite colors are shared with the background image of the track. So if you want to have the yellow color for your sprite, you have to rearrange the background colors in order to have the color index in the same exact spot that you need it. And then the last very little and trivial update is the numpad input. And this is necessary because the game is an 8-player multiplayer game, but I didn't program 8 input routines. This means that the maximum available human player before it was 7. So 4 joysticks and 3 at the keyboard. Now we can do 4 plus 4 is 8. We can play in 8 human players. And the way to achieve this is to add the numpad support, hoping that 4 people can share the same Amiga keyboard at the same time. Unfortunately, users for Amiga 600 are excluded from this.
I was going to say, and was it tested on the 600?
It wasn't tested. It was tested on my Amiga 500 before it died with the yellow screen of death.
The reason why I asked you is this is something that I've never tested myself. If you test for the numpad and it's not there, what happens on the A600? Does it crash?
No, it doesn't crash. Just you don't have the means to press the button, but it doesn't crash. The game works just fine.
Yeah, I don't know if the numpad is available in terms of pressing the to test for it and test for it. I have no idea. So yeah,
I'm pretty sure that if we could plug a regular keyboard on a I also, now that I'm thinking, I have a little device which sits on top of one of the chips of the 600 and let you use a USB keyboard as a replacement keyboard.
Oh, so
in this case, I think I didn't try it, but I have this little thing. And if I really think that if you use a numpad keyboard using a USB keyboard, it should work. It
Interesting.
could. Yeah, I have, yeah, over there is, I have a keyboard. Now I'm
How
eager to
how
test
do you
it.
attach it to the A600? How does it connect USB keyboard to the
Um,
A600?
it's a little board with a socket.
Ah, so you
And
place it on one
so
of the chips,
yes,
basically.
it's like an accelerator, but of course it doesn't sit on top of the CPU. It sits on a chip near to the keyboard connector. I don't know the name.
Uh-huh.
Probably it's a CIA,
CIA, yeah, probably it's the
CIA,
CIA, yeah.
yes. And I think it's called this SUM, SUM, and
But
it's quite expensive.
never heard of it, so yeah, I am.
Yeah, there is one, and oh, now I'm going off topic, but
Yeah, yeah,
since we
sure.
have time, I last year I was at this event in Firenze, Florence. It was Firenze Vintage Beat, and there was this guy. I think it is the last name was Renzi,
Mm-hmm.
and he was showing off a piece of hardware which was very interesting, and he called this hardware the Stalker. And what it does, it is a little device that you plug over the CIA,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can connect an external keyboard, a USB keyboard, and you can use two keyboards of this at the same time. So you can use the regular Amiga keyboard
Mm-hmm.
and an external USB keyboard at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But
And
what's the use of it though? I did not understand. If you have two keyboards.
yeah, I don't know. Probably if you want to remote control your Amiga, for example, with a wireless keyboard, you
Mm-hmm.
just put the keyboard on a shelf, for example,
Ah, okay,
and you
yes,
don't,
okay.
and still there is all the
Oh,
original keyboard there.
oh,
You can use it.
I saw a video about this. Now you made me remember. Yeah, 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 yeah. And look, Houndog has just put the link to it.
Gianluca Renzi,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Uh,
I remember seeing a video now of it. Yes.
yes, I'm very interested on this piece of hardware. He told me that it should be available to buy on Retro Giovedì, which is an Italian Amiga shop.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I didn't have any
Sure.
communication about it. So for me, it's not on sale yet. I think we have to wait, but it was very impressive. I think it's a unique device. I didn't see anything like that.
Sure.
Additionally, my SAM keyboard connector, it works fine, but I have issues if you press multiple key presses at the same time. It seems that it recognizes the first press
Mm.
and it doesn't recognize the second until the first one is released. There
Mm.
is something like that. I don't know if it's my keyboard faulty or my chip faulty. I don't know, but I can't play artsy in this Amiga because of this, because I have to press accelerate and at the same time I want to steer,
Mm-hmm.
to turn the car right or left. So I have this problem with so it's a PyStorm Amiga. I don't know if the problem is caused by the PyStorm or it's by my keyboard or whatever. But yes, maybe
Okay.
it's caused by how this some chip is designed. So
Sure. Okay.
okay, no more feature.
Okay. So shall I show the game?
We can start. Yeah, we can start the game.
There you go.
And I will take my usual sip of water.
I'm making sure you took a lot. So, start race.
Yeah, it goes straight into the race just to show the new HUD.
The HUD and the sound, because you also have sound.
Yeah, the sound also we can, but it's clunky. It's not very pleasant to hear. But as you can see, there is this circle next to each car, and while during the progress of the race, the color of this circle, the circle is filled with different colors according if you are the current leader or the best lapper or whatever, or the winner of the race. Since you set just one lap, all this data will be taken into account only at the end of the race. So if you can see the Ferrari won, so on the bottom left, you should see the indicator, which is filled with all the colors.
Yeah, next race.
And this is the menu. So if you give a look, or you just keep it, but there was the final results now are showing that the Ferrari was awarded with extra points for the best lap and the best leader. So nothing.
If we do two laps, what will change? Anything will change? Something will change, or it will be the same?
It depends. I doubt. You should see at the end of the first lap, of course, the car in first position will be the best lapper. So the outer layer of the circle should be red, I think. You can try it, and maybe pause when after the first lap. Just pause the emulator.
Guys, you're seeing an Amiga game that nobody has, okay? Remember this.
Except me.
Yeah. Or me.
And Carlo.
And me.
And you, yes. And Carlo. I don't think anybody has this TADF file. But you can compile and and produce on your own.
Let's see 2 laps how it will behave.
I can't see the indicator, or yes, because there is your logo
on the yellow right now.
Yeah. Can I? No, you can pause. You should see the center, center part of the circle is red.
Yeah. What is the? You see, in the HUD there you have a line.
Yeah, this is a line which is the representation of the laps. For example, now the line is halfway. It means that we are at the half of the race.
Ah, that's what it means.
Yes, when the yellow car will cross the finish line, it should go all the way to the right.
I see. Interesting. So
it's just another way instead of showing
one thing that you need to add, which I noticed it last time and I forgot to tell you. When it finishes, instead of coming to the screen immediately, you should say press fire button or something to go to next screen, because when it finishes, it doesn't give you time to see what's at the bottom, to see the HUD. So yeah, press the button. It would be helpful.
Yeah, this is quite easy to implement.
Yeah, of course. You have it already there. Just to implement, to add another button. But yeah.
Yeah, I have to create the phrase with printing each letter.
Oh, it's not the end of the world. It's okay.
So it's Palladio performed the best lap with Alfa Romeo in 1,960 frames.
Yeah. So we can jump to the PDF now, I assume.
Yeah. Yes.
And next page. Yeah.
Next page. So, as I said, I'm not going to talk about how to draw the HUD because it's quite uninteresting to you, I think. It's boring stuff. It's just bleeding piece of graphics into the bit planes. So this is something that you probably have already discussed over and over again. What I'd like to talk today is about the Amiga audio system. So above all, Paula. Because it's, but I think it's more generic and could be of interest. So this is how I implemented the audio. And the goal of this talk is just to make you realize how do I generate the sounds of the Amiga channel, how the hardware works, and how do I change the pitch of the engine, because I don't know if the sound was turned on this.
No,
on
it
the
was.
stream.
It was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you notice when the game starts, the car are at very low velocity, 0 velocity, and there is the audio output is something like a so a very low pitch. And then when they reach the maximum velocity, you hear a very high pitch, which is something like something like that. So how do I achieve this? And it's quite trivial, thanks to the Amiga hardware. And this is what the subject of this talk. So first of all, a little bit of introduction. I have this mover object, which are cars, and they have a lot of properties. They have for example, the name of the car, the ID of the car, and some of these properties are related to audio. And I just need 3 properties. I need the motor sample offset, which is a memory space when I store the address of the sound, the audio channel address, because you probably already know that the Amiga can handle up to 4 different channels. I think 1 and 4 are tied to the left jack connector, and 2 and 3 to the right. I'm not sure about that, but what is important is that you know that you have these 4 different audio channel, and you can play with them. And lastly, you have this audio channel DMA bit memory space. It just link a particular car to an audio bit, because if you look at the image on the bottom right, this is my famous Amiga font editor, and it just reflects how DMA con R works. And if you notice, the last nibble, so the least significant nibble, reserved to audio channels. If you want to enable, for example, the audio channel, the first audio channel, you have to set bit 1, the bit 15, in order to state that you want to turn on. And then you have to put another bit, so the bit 0, you have to put this bit to 1 in order to that you tell the Amiga that you want to enable this particular DMA channel. So this is tied to my audio channel DMA bit. And every car, is just assigned to a particular DMA channel. now the problem is that I have 8 cards and 4 channels. So what I did, I just tied the Ferraris, which are 2 cards, to channel number 0. And then the second one is the McLaren, it's tied to channel number 1. The Renault, it's channel number 2. And the last one is Alfa Romeo, it's channel number 3. So I make use of these 4 channels, but always keep in mind that they are shared between cards of the same team. And this is because the Amiga has only, and I say only because it was a big deal back in the days to have 4 channels. But in order to produce 8 sounds, you have to do some mixing, and it's quite complex. But still, maybe next time I will talk about mixing audio. So when before the race starts, there is this stage, which I call the initialization stage, when I assign all this data to the card. So I say, please, card number 1 is tied to the DMA channel 0 and particular register tied to the audio channel 0. So for example, move.l motor 1 sound, comma motor sample offset A0. This is just tells the Amiga, hey, when you initialize the Ferrari, you take the address of motor sound, which is where all the samples are stored in memory, and you write to this particular location. So it's sample offset. And then I say this particular location is DFF0A0. And there is a picture on the upper right of the screen, which is just a summary of the audio registers. So these are register, you can think of this register like the bit plane pointers. They work more or less in the same way. If you remember, if you want to display a bit plane, so for example, an image on the Amiga, you have to set you have to do this bit plane pointing, and there is a special address inside the Amiga when you put the address of this of where the image is, and the same concept is repeated for audio. So for example, if you want to play some samples that are at address motor sound, you have to fill audio 0 LCH and audio 0 LCL, which in combination they gives the final result to the Amiga. And this is one of the reasons why I think to the Amiga as a state machine, because you just set this register once, and then the Amiga will keep playing over and over again these samples unless you try to stop it. So at this point, you could argue where are the samples, and I said that there are at address motor sound, motor underscore SND, and on the last line you can see the samples. There is a label which is called motor1 S underscore SND, and there are dc.b, which stands for just a defined constant at bytes. So here I'm just declaring statically. It's hard-coded. It's a hard-coded samples. I say 0, 40, 90, 110, and so on. So this is my sample, and this is something that I just figure out just put some data here, some random data. Notice that each sample is 8-bit, because that's how Paula works. It just Paula, for what I know, it fetches data in groups of 16 bytes, but each samples must be expressed in a byte. You can do a word.
So,
So
I
yes?
just was going to ask you, the sound that you have in the data that you have for motor1_sound, I don't know if you guys realize, but if I'm interpreting this correctly, it's like a sine wave. No, it's going up and then down and up again. So if you see that he has 0, 40, 90, 110, 127, 110 again, 90, 40, 0, and then minus 40. So you see the opposite of what he has. If I'm interpreting this wrong, just tell me, Ozzy, but I think that's like a sine wave, what you have there.
Turn the page and you will see how this wave look like.
Okay. I sorry if I said something in advance. I just read the data and I was so continue, and sorry for the interruption then.
Yeah, no, you can just turn the page. I will answer right now.
There you go. Okay. It was a sine wave, as I said.
Yes, it is a sine wave. So this is online application. It lives in a browser. It's called GeoGebra, and I use this for mathematical stuff. But one of these features of GeoGebra is that you can draw graphs, draw functions, draw whatever you want. It's like, say, it's a Wolfram Alpha light version, more easier to understand and completely
Really, what
free.
is the name of it? I don't think I've heard of it.
GeoGebra, but it's not something related to Amiga. It's helpful for students to learn math.
Yeah, I need to learn maths, don't worry. What is the name?
GeoGebra. You just Google GeoGebra.
How do you write Gebra? Geo? Okay.
Look at the title on the top of this page.
GeoGeb. Okay, GeoGeb.
In Italian is GeoGebra.
Exactly, GeoGebra. That's what I wrote. Okay. That's how I spelled it in my heart. Aha. This is interesting. Okay. I had no idea about this one.
Yeah.
Really had no idea of this one.
Yeah, for example, I remember I used this on the past in order to...
Let me show them what I have seen in the browser. So this is GeoGebra. Interesting.
Exactly. You can write formulas here, functions, and it will just give a visual representation if you want.
Okay.
And so if you look at my slide, this is a case usage of GeoGebra, and I just defined all the points on the left. So on the left I put 0.0, which is the x and the y coordinate, and then I put, I don't remember all the values.
So every 10 you are putting 40, then 20 is 90, then 30 is 110. So yeah.
Yes, you are still streaming GeoGebra. You are not streaming.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, sorry. Sorry. Yeah. Interesting.
So the y position, so the second value of each point, is just what you saw at motor1_sound address. So it's the representation of the height of the sample. And then on the x-axis, I just gave a 10 as a difference. So every 10 pixel, every 10 units, I draw another pixel, another sample. And this is just arbitrary to me, just to show how this wave looks like. Of course, this is a sort of representation of the sample rate, because the goal here is to represent an analog signal, but we must represent in an Amiga, which lives in this digital world. So in order to represent this sine wave, we have to do this process. I think it's called quantization. So we must express every point, so every sample. Every point for me is a sample. It's what I call a sample. And the whole samples together, it just makes the sine wave, and it produces the final sound. So now, for example, if instead of using the 10 for a divider into the x-axis, if you pick a smaller number, you should hear a higher pitch. So the sound is the same, the data is the same, but the pitch is higher, because you have this up and down, very, very close to each other. On the other side, if you increase the distance, the x distance between the points, you get something like a slope, a very gentle slope, and you get a very, let's say, low pitch sound, something like the brrr. So this is the main concept. In what I'm doing in my game, I'm just changing the rate of this sine wave. And if I put a very high rate, you hear a high pitch, and on the contrary, you hear a low pitch. But the sample is always the same. It's this sample. I don't know if I explained this concept very well, but I tried. But the concept is, if you look here, I'm just using, I think it's 16 bytes. So just using 16 bytes, which is just, come on, it's something that the Amiga can handle, you get a sound. And so, of course, if you want to represent a full song, this makes things it's more complicated, because you need a lot of memory to represent all the sine waves of the instruments and so on. But just to reproduce a little noise that could resemble an engine, this is enough. It's a little bit rough, let's say, as an idea, so it's not so pleasant to hear, but you get a sound. This is a sound, actually. And these are my samples. So you can turn the page. I will just show you the harder part. How do I set up these registers? So as I already told you, each car has this data inside that just represents where to play this sine wave. And this is the part where I hit the Amiga hardware, and I say, please, Amiga, play this sample. So this is a little bit long to comment. I highlight the main points. So first of all, at line 3, I have move.w DMA set D1. And this is just to set the DMA for my basic stuff, like the copper, the blitter, the bit planes, and the sprites. Notice that the last nibble is 0. And I store this value into data register D1. Next, at line 6, I just test if we want to play the sound, because if you remember, at the beginning of the game in the main screen, you can access the option screen and you can disable the sound. So if this is the case, the variable play sound is false. And if play sound is true, you have to set up audio channels. So this is the reason why at line 7 we have BEQ, which stands for branch on equal. So if you branch here, you don't set up anything, so you get no sound at all. And then I start looping for each car, because there is this Tibra cycle. It's just like a for loop in C, very similar. And for each car, I just check if the car is in play, because you can run this race just with a few cards. You are not forced to use all 8 cards. So the cards that are not in play, they should not have the engine sound turned on. This is just another check. And then there is the at line 15, 16, and 17. It's where all the magic occurs. So line 15, I just write into register A1 the content. So where should I put the sample? So it's what we saw before. It's the register which is supposed to contain the address of the sample. And then I write there the address of the sample. And for example, in this case, if we are using the Ferrari, which is tied to channel 0, we are writing the address of the motor sound into DFF0A0. Another thing that you have to set in order to play a sound, you have to declare the length of the sample. So how many bytes are stored inside this motor1 underscore sound label. We saw before that we just had 16 bytes, I think. But remember, here you have to set the number of words. And this is very similar how the blitter works, because also when you blit something, you have to say to the blitter, please, this is the amount of data that I want to blit. And this amount of data is expressed into words. And the same happens here. This audio register, which is called aud0len, is the audio channel's 0 length, and it's at address DFF 0A4. And here it's a word. You must put the size in words of your samples. Then at line 16, no, I already discussed this line. It's line 17. I think I messed up something.
I think you're in line number 19 now.
Yeah, line number 19, yes. There is another register that you have. It's mandatory. You have to write into this address. It's called audio aud0 pair, and I think that pair is the period. So you have to say here the sample rate of the of your samples. In other words, do you remember that I put these values on the x-axis distanced by 10? So this is something like that. You are just saying the distance, how many samples the Amiga should play for a certain amount of time. The problem with this register is that it's not so intuitive. There are some strange formulas out there because the Amiga thinks in times, in ticks, not in seconds, not in milliseconds, not like humans. The Amiga has this concept of ticks, and so we have to do our conversion. And I found on the hardware reference manual this formula, which is 3579646 divided by sample per second. So, for example, if you have a sample which is so this wave file, you have a wave file, and this wave file has a sample rate, for example, of 8,000 hertz. You just have to divide this huge number, which is 35790, etc., divided by the sample per second, which is 8,000. You get the result and you slap it into the audio zero LAN. And for what I understand, this audio zero LAN, audio zero pair, it's just a counter. It gets decremented, like, for example, when you use the bit blank pointers, the copper. So every time that you change scanline, the pointers are updated automatically by the Amiga, and this is the same concept. So while playing the audio, this counter gets decremented, and when it gets to zero, it's just reset, and the sample plays over again. It works like that. And last, quite easy to understand, is the audio zero volume. And this is just the volume that you want to hear your sample. The minimum is 0, I think it's muted, and the maximum is 64. You just put this number in order to control the volume of this channel. Lastly, did you remember that we just set into D1 the DMA bits? Now it's time to open the DMA. So the Amiga has this mechanism inside of fetching data automatically. So if you turn on DMA, the Amiga will go into the chip RAM, it will fetch this data of your samples, and it will just automatically reproduce it. It's quite easy. So it's not difficult programming this way, because you just tell the location, you set the volume and the sample rate, and that's it. And the Amiga will start forever playing your sample. And this OR at line 21, this OR.w, it just sets the bit, just takes what was before inside D1 and adds a bit. That's it. And then we have at line 23, 24, we just go to the next iteration. I move the address to the next car, and I repeat the same process over and over again for each car. And this is at line 28, there is the final result. So D1 gets written into DFF 095, which is DMA con register, and this activates the DMA, so the automatic fetching of data from the chip memory. Yeah. And all this stuff happens just before the game loop. So before the race starts, I just prepare the audio and I enable the DMA. When the race has started, I just change the pitch, changing audio zero, audio pair, audio 0 pair. This is the name of the register, which is the playback speed, essentially. And this concept, please turn the page, go to page number 6, and this is how all I had to do for adjusting playback speed according to card velocity. So what I was trying to do here, I want to say the Amiga, please, if the car is heading at high speed, so it's going fast, I want a high pitch. I want something like that. And this is how I change this, the formula that I use in order to achieve this. And all starts, again, line 7 and line 8 is just for checking if the user is willing to have audio enabled. And then at line 9, I just put -1 into the 0. This is the maximum value that can hold a word into the 1, yes. And then I just divided the velocity by 4 using a left shift at line 10, and D0 holds the value of the velocity, and you can see it because you can't see it, but I know it because the gets to the magnitude routines, which is called at line 2, just returns the velocity into the 0. So what I'm doing here, I take the velocity, I divide it by 4, and I subtract to the 1. And this is counterintuitive because if you should think, wait, if I'm going to a high velocity, I want a high pitch, so the frequency must be high. But remember that the audio 0 pair, it's a counter. If a counter is it's a small number, you get a high frequency. So it's the inverse because it's expressed in time. It's not in frequency. So it's frequency is 1 divided by time. So you have to change the concept here. So we get more speed, we go toward 0. This is why I use the sub.w instead of that add.w. And then when I get the final value, I just store into the audio channel address, which so inside it's 6A1, so it's line 13. I just store into audio 0 pair this value, and that's it. This is how it works. And this is a question that I remember I was asked by someone in the past, and I didn't answer directly. How did I do this? I hope that now it's a little bit clear. The problem with this approach is that, and this is what I'm trying to solve right now. If I already said that the cars of the same team, they share the same audio channel. This means that, for example, if we have 2 Ferraris playing, you get the same data, the same audio 0 pair register is overwritten by the second. It means that you can't hear the sound of the first car because every time the value of the register is overwritten. So what I'm trying to do right now, I'm just trying to mix all the waves. So for example, I have to add each samples, and this leads to some complications because you could have clipping, you have to process each sample at real time, so it's quite messy. This is something that I would avoid. There is a very interesting project in EAB, and there is a Dutch programmer who released his routines in order to do audio mixing. Still, I have to try them. It looks very promising. He states that he's able to mix samples into a single channel at very high speed with the minimum CPU usage. So it should be quite fast. I have to study how it works. It's quite complicated, but it could be a solution. And he did this project mainly for games, because when you program a game into the Amiga, probably you want to have background music, and at the same time you want to have multiple sound effects. So usually you can achieve this just reserving one channel or two channels for the sound effects, and reserve the others for the mod track or the music. So his project is aiming to solve all this problem. If you want to play, or for example, if you only have one channel available for the audio, for the sound effects, and you want to have multiple sound effects at the same time, you can do this live mixing, and probably, I'm sure it works. There is also a YouTube video that is showing how the final result. It doesn't go into details how to achieve this from a coding point of view, just show the final outcome. It's very impressive. I'm not at this stage. This is just a few lines of code just to demonstrate how Paula handles the audio. And I think now it should be a little bit clear if you didn't read the book, or at least for me, the book, the Fabio Ciucci's book, doesn't go into detail of this audio register, just a general summary. Okay, so now it's time to take a sip of water because I talked too much.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're ready, okay.
I'll turn the page in the meantime.
Yes. So, samples on the web. Since now you know how to play samples on your Amiga, this is just my little list of useful resources on the web. The first one it was suggested by Carlo, and it's called Amiga STXX. It's on. There are a lot of compilation at archive.org, and these are just a collection of sounds. They are mainly intended for musicians, for example, as samples that you can use on your tracker. But of course, they are just sounds, so you can take it and use it on your project. I think they are free to use. One thing that you need to know is the format that was used back in the days, because as I already said, the Amiga is only able to play some particular samples. Each sample must be 8-bit, and also the sample rate must not exceed, I think, 28,000 hertz, no more. It's the maximum that Amiga is able to play. So this Amiga STXX collection is something that was designed for the Amiga in mind. So are ready to use. You can use it straight away. Inside you will find different formats. You can take raw files. There are a lot of raw files inside, and this, of course, must be interpreted. It works just like when you import an image and you want to show the image into your bit planes. You have to know in advance how this raw data is constructed. You have to know the size, how many bit planes, how many bytes for each rows, and so on. The same concept is for the audio. If you get just raw audio, you have to know in advance the sample rate. And of course, you have to know each sample, that if it's or not represented in signed mono. So this is something mandatory, and the Amiga STXX is already compliant to this format. Additionally, there are these, you know that the Amiga has this IFF format, which I think stands for interchangeable something. So the main concept here is I just give you a file.
As far as I know, it means interchangeable file format.
File format, yes. It means you can also put audio inside the IFF.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, you get images. It's used for images. For example, for Deluxe Paint, it's able to open IFF image file, but IFF is also used for music, or at least for sound, for samples. So you can think this IFF as a container, and inside this container there is a header which is telling you, hey, the following raw data is just signed bytes of an audio, for example. So this 8SFX, it's just a way to represent an 8-bit sampled voice. If you find this format, you can import in your, for example, I use Audacity. It's a great tool, and he can read this type of data, and he can export in whatever format you want. One thing I forgot to mention is that there is a script which is at gist.github.com, and these gists are just little snippets of code which are meant to run on a modern PC, not on the Amiga. And if you want, you can convert a raw file into an IFF file. So what I usually do, if I want to hear a raw file, I just take this Python script, I give the raw file as an input, and just give me an AIFF file as an output, and then I can import into the Amiga, or I use Audacity. To be honest, I don't use the Amiga for this stuff because Audacity is so great. But so just to summarize briefly, with this Python script, you can transform a raw file, and of course you have to feed with information, and then in return you get an IFF file, and you can import into Audacity or into your Amiga as you prefer. So if you want just to hear quickly the sample, this is a great way to do it. And then this is another very interesting project that I would like to know more, because I didn't know that there were this piece of hardware back in the days, hardware devices that you plug into the Amiga parallel port.
Yeah, I have one.
Do you have it?
Yeah,
does it work?
It still works, yes.
So I assume on the back of these devices you have the
jack.
The jack, yes. You can put a microphone, for example.
I remember putting the Walkman, the output of the Walkman to the input of the Amiga. Yeah, that's what I need.
You can just an audio source, whatever. And what it does, it's just like a scanner or an image scanner, just digitize your audio, and you get, for example, an audio file, and you can hear in your computer. The problem is that probably you run out of memory quite fast, because it's a lot of data to handle for the Amiga. You can record a few seconds, I think.
the samples are small, so you don't.
The samples are small. It depends. If you have a lot of samples and for 1 hour, for example, a podcast, it's a
That's a
huge.
different story, no? I mean, at that time, nobody used the Amiga to sample a whole film. Let's say the sound of a
Maybe
film.
today with all our cool expansions,
Ah,
it's
well, yeah,
possible
that's a
to do
different
it.
story. But yeah, back then, memory was expensive,
Yeah.
and we didn't have hard drives because that's the other thing. You can sample and save to the hard disk, no? Um,
Yes.
but yeah, it was not possible. I don't remember software doing that back then. Um, but yes, I had the Audio Master. That's the version that I had from the same people that had the actual replay, if I remember correctly. Actually, I will check it out. Audio Master. Yeah, I remember the software. Audio
Audio
Master
Master,
for yeah, Audio Master is the software, but there was also the sampler.
you mean the hardware dongle?
Yeah, the hardware that you plugged into the. So when you buy Audio Master, you get the you also get the when you buy the sampler, you also get Audio Master. That's the version that what I had. But in fact, look, I found a video he's showing it. It's the same one that I have. Yeah. Let me maybe share it. Give me a second. Let me share it. Uh, um, and he's going to show it, I think. This one. Yeah. Exactly. Same manual. I still have it. Same manual. It's without sound so that we can talk. And that. Exactly that. That's what I have. Amiga Master Sound from Microdeal, not
Yeah, it's a mono
yeah,
signal.
yeah. And that's what I have. I still have it. It's in Malta, but I have it. And I was checking it not this time, but in March when I was there. How it was built. Look how small it is.
Yeah, there is a chip inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm wondering right now is just today
Uh,
this type of device is pretty useless because
yes,
with
it is. Yeah.
any piece of hardware can do this. Well, my PC can do it, and you
Yeah.
can convert
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
the Amiga format very
Yeah.
easily.
I mean, I have it to say that I have it, but I will not use it today on the PC with Audacity. But I mean, why would you bother with the Amiga sample? I mean, just do that. But
Why bother with the Amiga at all, to be honest?
no, the Amiga is still nice, but with the sample, why? I mean, you use the PC for that, no?
Yeah, it's as I said, I use Audacity. It's very convenient to me. It's
Yeah,
very easy to use and well documented. I don't see any single reason to use AudioMaster instead of Audacity.
yeah.
And my cell phone is able to capture
But
sound. My
I
tablet
will
is
show you
able to
one
do
thing.
it.
This was cool. Wait. I found. I'm going to go back because this was cool. See this how it was the software. It 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 was really cool.
Yeah,
For
it is.
for a machine that is 40 years old, okay, or 35 years old, it is it was cool. It had all these functions. I remember the software very well.
I've never seen that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I still have the original.
Unfortunately,
I still have the original floppy. Still have the manual. Yeah, it was really really cool.
absolutely, absolutely.
Anyway, let's go back to the yeah, because we deviated a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, Joe, just want to mention this open source project, which is Open Amiga Sampler. So if you are crazy enough that you really want to capture audio with your Amiga and you don't want to spend time looking for a sampler and pay crazy prices, because today everything that is branded Amiga is crazy expensive. There is this Open Amiga Sampler, and this is something that I'm willing to do if I retired, if I get time, because it's too many projects, but it should be very cool. You can build on your own this type of device, and you can start capturing sound and digitizing sound on your Amiga, and quite cool. On the right, I just put a little image of different, I found on the internet, a different sampler that were on the market back in the days. Very cool stuff. Unfortunately, since I was a child, I used the Amiga as a playing machine. I didn't bother about these possibilities. But really, the Amiga was a very wonderful piece of hardware back in the days that let you do this. I don't know if the Commodore 64 has something
It
like
had
that.
something, but not, it wasn't, I mean, there was one or two. I don't remember exactly. There was one or two. But when the Amiga had this, the PC did not even know what this was. The PC didn't have sound, just the beep.
Yeah,
So
the
this was
speaker.
amazing. Yeah. So this was
Yeah,
amazing. I
yeah.
remember
Imagine.
I remember taking this to school with my Amiga and recording the teacher and then play him back or things like that.
Yeah, really. Sometimes I just I'm not happy because I missed really the
Oh
fun
well,
part of the Amiga. It was not only video games; it was much more. You can do, of course, deluxe paint. You can compose music and you can capture music with your Amiga,
and capture
and it
video
was
and capture
very,
video.
very cool.
Yeah, capture video also. So it had all these
Capture
things.
video if you have a gel lock, of
Yeah,
course, but
I didn't have a gel lock, so I never did it. But yeah, samples I did because of course for games. No, so yeah.
yeah, of course, you need also to have a little bit of knowledge, because when I was a child, I didn't have this concept of digitizing. For me, I didn't know what digit is. Digitizing is, I don't know why do I need to digitize. For me, it was just my VCR. I have connected to the TV, and that's it. This is all I used for my cartoons. But yes, really, the Amiga was much more than a gaming console. Really, and this is just one of the applications that you can do today if you want, even if it's quite useless. But yes, so you
What
can
what
go to
was it?
the
What was amazing is the software that dealt with these things also. Um, it took time to see these things on PC, so sampling of sound on the Amiga was something common, but on the PC it took time. So the software was quite advanced compared to the PC till it came and started, till they started doing things on the PC. Um, yeah, I mean, same like, T-Paint was quite advanced when the PC didn't have such a thing. So yeah, it was the same thing. These type of softwares were quite advanced back in the days.
yeah,
And
the alternative, of course, is just to use DC.B and start writing numbers on your own, and you get something, hopefully.
yeah,
If
I
you,
remember having fun with the sampler. So yeah.
yeah, they are very fun. I remember that Carlo told me that back in the days, the musician made use of Atari ST because
Yeah.
of Cubase plus
Yes.
this MIDI port.
Yeah. The
Um,
Atari had that, but the Amiga you could get a MIDI port for it. Um, extra, let's say, adding it to the parallel port. I believe
yeah,
it's and it was the same in the end. But the ST had it built in, no, so that was the advantage.
Yeah, there are media. I have one. It was quite cheap to get one. I connected my Amiga to a keyboard, to
Mm-hmm.
a piano keyboard, and it works really. You can play back, can capture
Yeah.
your key presses. Really, it's unbelievable that
What
you
keyboard do you
can do
have?
this.
What keyboard did you buy? What keyboard do you have to play?
It's a Roland. I don't know, but it's not expensive. It's just it's almost like a toy. I think. Wait, I have. Oh, it's buried here. I can't show you.
What is
But
the name?
yes,
What is the name of it, Roland? What?
yeah, I don't
No,
know
I'm
it.
trying to look for a picture of it. So Roland, you don't know the
Uh,
number.
no, it's buried behind my
Ah, very.
furnitures, and
Uh-huh.
now it will take time to
Sure,
extract.
sure. No problem.
But what I can say, it has two MIDI ports of the back,
Uh-huh.
in and out, and then I plug. Let me see if I have it. It's here somewhere. Too much stuff. But I have a sampler here. It's called.
You have a MIDI card basically to attach to the Amiga.
It's not just. Oh yeah, this is one. It's called. Ah, now everything will fall down. It's called.
Ah,
Do you see it?
yeah. Music X.
Music X. I
Yes,
have
I know
this
it.
one,
Yeah, I
and
know it.
if you open this, there is the floppy disk, and there is the manual is literally a book.
Yeah. I know it.
It's
Yeah.
it's something like that, and one day I will study it, of course. And then I have this one which incredibly it works. It's the
Yeah.
MIDI interface.
Yeah.
And I remember I put here just my keyboard piano, and I put this.
In
I
the
think it's
Amiga.
the parallel
Yeah.
of the Amiga, and then I run some software. I don't remember
Yeah.
this Music X or but whatever software, and it works. And this is another thing that you can do with the Amiga. It's quite
Yeah.
amazing. But this is not, of course, for audio capturing. It's
No,
just
it's for
a
MIDI capture.
MIDI
Yeah.
synthesizer.
Music, yeah. Synthesizer capture, no?
Music X. And it's compatible with the Amiga 500, requires half meg and a MIDI interface and synthesizers. And yes, it's a sequencer,
Yeah.
key mapping. There is a lot of stuff in. Yeah, again, I hope one day I will start. I'm able to play piano. Maybe I can use my magical skills of pianist to do something for my demos in the future. Okay. We'll put back later. So go to page number 8. And I think this is the last slide regarding audio. And then we will decide if we want to continue or we will leave something for next week.
I think we're going to leave it for next week.
So this is the last slide. Socks. Socks is another tool that I use, and it's a command line tool. Don't be intimidated for that. It's very easy to use. It's an open source project. It runs virtually everywhere. I don't know if it works on the Amiga, I doubt. But what it does, it just converts any known format into another, and it just resample data and do a lot of magical stuff. And this is how I convert the WAV files for the Amiga. I just invoke socks, and then I give this chow.wave, for example. So this is the input file. And then -R, it just says, please resample at 8th 1000 hertz, because when you download something from the internet, probably it's much higher quality, and we have to, let's say, downgrade this wave file in some way in order to let the Amiga play it. And then we say minus T S8, and this converts the sample into signed data. So each byte of my, for example, my sound motor label, so it just takes each sample point from our graph, and it converts to a sign in a sign byte, and that's
What
it.
what I'm curious here is that if you have data saved from the PC, you know that the PC is little Indian, it's little Indian, while the Amiga is big Indian.
It's not a problem here because Paula will just read 1 byte each time. So
Yeah, but what I meant is, with does it convert it that it's okay for the Amiga all the time?
of course it converts correctly, because let's say you have a very high number and you have to convert for the Amiga. This high number must be represented in a single byte. And since it's a single byte, the order of the byte, it's not relevant. It's just one. So it
Yeah,
doesn't matter which is the first byte and the second. It's just one. So you don't have any problems for endianness here. It's impossible.
but I did in the past I did have an issue with this, but but it wasn't with
It's
the
not
story.
about the representation of the samples, because in order to represent a sample, you just need a byte.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but I do remember such an issue. But yeah, okay. I digress. So yeah, continue. Sorry.
So these socks will of course will help you shrinking this file at maximum. Of course, you will lose quality and a lot of quality, but this is something that can be used for the Amiga. And also, SOX is able to read these AIFF files, so it can read virtually any format. It's quite good. And the final switch is the -D, which just avoid dithering, which can be dithering is on at default in SOX, so you have to explicitly disable it in order to get a better conversion. And my source for this trick / command is this YouTuber. It's a quite popular YouTuber. He releases a very high quality video all related to Amiga hardware programming. The only downside is that he used VBCC as a compiler. It doesn't use assembler at all, but doesn't matter. The concepts are pretty much the same. So if you go to his YouTube page, there is
I know the guy, so yeah, I can show.
It's an American Chinese guy, but the videos are very, very good. And there is a complete lesson about audio. I don't remember which episode it is.
Is it about this one? Oh, no, this one.
Yeah, sound. Exactly. And in this video, he just used the same exact command, SOX. So at the beginning, he did some audio capture with his PC, and it processed or it does some post processing with Audacity, and then he gets a wave file out of all this stuff, and then he uses SOX in order to reduce the sample rate to something that the Amiga can understand, and it rewrites all the sample in signed byte using SOX. So you get this raw file at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and using C, he just did what I did. So it just points the Amiga registers to where the data is on chip RAM, and he starts playing. Actually, he did some things, additional things. If compared to me, for example, he uses interrupts in order to understand when the playback is finished.
Yeah.
But the concept is exactly the same. Just if you didn't watch it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And that's it. I think we are done for today. Hope
Okay.
you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to here. Um. Again, thank you very much, Ozzy.
You're welcome.
Hope to see you next week. But yeah. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a lovely weekend. Thank you once again, Ozzy, and see you on Sunday. See you guys. Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Exactly. And ciao, Dario, also. Ciao.